Top 3 Scariest Supermarket Horror Stories That Will Leave You Speechless. Before we begin, take a deep breath, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss these terrifying tales. Now let's dive in, if you dare. Story 1. The Invisible Shopper. It was late, almost closing time. Claire, a night shift cashier at a supermarket, was alone at her register, waiting for the last customers to leave. The fluorescent lights buzzed above her, casting an eerie glow across the empty aisles. She sighed, ready to finish the shift, when she noticed something strange. A figure had appeared in the aisle across from her. But there was something off about them. The person was tall, wearing a dark hoodie, their face hidden in the shadows. They didn't grab anything from the shelves, they just stood there, perfectly still, as if waiting. Claire thought nothing of it at first. Some people come in late, maybe just for a snack or a last-minute need. But then, the figure moved. They didn't walk though. They glided slowly across the aisle like they were floating. And as they passed, Claire could swear that their footsteps were silent. Panic crept up her spine. She wasn't imagining it. The figure was standing at the end of the aisle, staring at her now. "Can I help you?" Claire asked, her voice shaking. No response. She hesitated, then picked up the phone to call the store manager. But when she looked up, the figure was gone. Not even a shadow remained. Relieved but confused, she returned to her shift. But as the clock ticked closer to midnight, something strange happened. A cold chill filled the air, so cold it made her breath visible even though the heat was turned up in the store. Claire froze when she heard it, soft, faint whispers, coming from the aisle. She turned to look, but no one was there. Yet the whispers grew louder, and she could make out a voice now, a raspy voice that said, "You never asked my name." The lights flickered violently. The whispering stopped. When the manager arrived the next morning, Claire was gone. No trace, no sign of a struggle. Just an empty cashier station, and a single receipt with no items on it lying on the floor. Story 2. The Checkout That Never Ends. James had just gotten off work and stopped by his local supermarket to grab a few things. It was a quiet evening, and there were only a few other customers milling about. He stood in line at the self-checkout station, scanning his items, minding his business. Then a peculiar thing happened. He noticed the scanner beep twice for an item that he hadn't scanned. At first he thought it was a glitch, but then it happened again. The same item, an apple, kept appearing on the screen as if he had scanned it over and over. Frustrated, he waved down an attendant. "Hey, I think there's a problem with the machine." The attendant approached, looked at the screen and frowned. "Weird. I'll reset it for you." James stepped back as the attendant fiddled with the machine. But when the attendant hit the reset button, the screen changed to a new message. "Scan item. Place item in bag." James felt a strange sense of dread but shrugged it off. Maybe the system was malfunctioning, he thought. But as he scanned his groceries one by one, the same item, the apple, continued to appear over and over no matter what he scanned. He tried to cancel the transaction, but the screen wouldn't allow it. He tapped at the screen, but the message didn't change. The lights in the store flickered. The air grew colder, and the overhead speakers crackled to life with a voice he didn't recognize. No escape. James's heart began to race. He reached for his phone to call the police, but when he tried to dial, the phone went dead. The machines hummed louder, and the screen blinked again. "Scan item. Place item in bag." Terrified, James turned to look around, only to find that the store had changed. The shelves were darker, the aisles longer, stretching into an impossible distance. It was as though the store had become a maze with no way out. Suddenly, a cold hand gripped his shoulder. "It's too late," a whisper breathed into his ear. James spun around, but no one was there. As he turned back to the self-checkout, he saw it. The receipt printer was printing a long, endless slip of paper. The same apple over and over again. And as James stared at the paper, the last line appeared. "You will never leave." Story 3. The Unseen Shopper. Megan had been working the late shift at the supermarket for a year now, and she was used to the quiet emptiness of the store after dark. Most of the time she worked alone, with only a few stragglers grabbing late-night snacks. But one night everything changed. Around 3 a.m. a man entered the store. He was tall, wearing a dirty trench coat, and his face was obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Megan didn't think much of it at first. There were plenty of strange folks at night. What was strange, though, was that he didn't go to any of the aisles. He simply stood near the front of the store, just staring at her. Not saying a word. Just watching. Megan felt uneasy, but she tried to keep her focus. She rang up the customers that came and went, all the while keeping an eye on the man. But every time she looked, he was there, just standing, staring, not moving. Then, after what felt like hours, the store began to get colder. The lights flickered, and Megan heard faint footsteps that weren't hers. She turned around, but the man was gone. Panic surged in her chest. Where did he go? The sound of footsteps came closer and closer. Megan whipped around and froze. The man wasn't at the front of the store anymore. He was behind her, standing right behind her, so close that she could feel the chill of his breath on the back of her neck. Megan, the voice rasped. You're not alone here. She didn't dare turn around. Her heart was hammering in her chest, her hands shaking as she tried to call for help, but her voice wouldn't come. The last thing Megan saw before everything went black were the dark, empty eyes of the man in the trench coat, and his smile. It stretched too wide, too unnatural. And there you have it, the 3 scariest supermarket horror stories that you will never forget. If you haven't already, subscribe now. Because once you've heard these stories, there's no going back. And remember, the supermarket is never as safe as it seems. Until next time.